Hi, I'm Hannah and I'm the Media and Marketing Officer at Mac. And I led on the Spirit of Manchester Awards and also the Spirit of Manchester raffle and quiz. So we decided this year again to have a virtual event. We have to plan quite far in advance. So we were looking at this at sort of January and wondering whether people would want to come to a live event and also if venues would be able to accommodate us. We decided as a team that we would have a virtual event again as we did last year. Last year's event was successful. We were finding our feet, and we still are to some extent, but it was really successful, and we reached lots of people that we wouldn't normally have. So we thought, okay, we'll do that again, and then hopefully next year we maybe could either have some sort of hybrid of a virtual and a live event, maybe a small live event. But this year we went just purely with the virtual event again. A key element of our awards has always been the films. We've always made films of volunteers, voluntary organisations, and different individuals and groups that have nominated themselves for awards or have been nominated for. So these are often voted for on the night. This is how it used to work in the live event. We would make films of the shortlist and then they would be voted for on the evening. In this virtual event, this year we decided to have that competitive element back in. So we had three categories where our panel of judges shortlisted the nominees and we made films of each of those, which were shown on the evening. And then we used Slido to vote to see who the winner would be on the evening and announce them there and then. This was nice to have like an interactive element to the evening, and people were actually choosing who they wanted to win. It also encouraged people to attend. So if you knew that you're shortlisted, then you invite everybody you know, your whole organisation, all your volunteers, etc., to come along to YouTube and vote on their phone on the evening. So that was one element. We also had films of thank yous to different organisations and volunteers who weren't shortlisted, who weren't judged. It was just anybody who nominated was also mentioned, and some of those we had made films of. So there were about 5 of those, and we had key speakers making short films thanking the voluntary and community sector. So a large part of it was films, and so that was all organised beforehand. So it was only the live speaking that Mike did, chief exec, that was going to be live on the night, along with a couple of other people who reported on social media and any comments that we'd seen on there to feed into the event to again make it more interactive. We really didn't want it to be just a pure speech, so we wanted to think of ways that people could interact with us as much as possible. So the pros of having a virtual event, that it's a lot more inclusive. So if we had an event normally, we would hire a venue and we would have maybe 300-400 people attend, and those people, a lot of them will be like commissioners, key speakers, the mayor, etc. And then we would have the shortlisted organisations they'd be able to attend, and people could buy tickets. But with this virtual event, it's free. If you wouldn't necessarily want to go out to an event, or it's difficult for you to travel, then you don't need to worry about that because it's online. This year, we reached in total 1,184 views of the event, and that's in comparison to maybe 300 or 400 people that we could have fitted in a room. And also the other thing is you don't have to be available on that night. So a lot of those were watching it as it happened. It was live streamed on YouTube. So our chief exec was broadcasting via Zoom and then streaming onto YouTube, and people could comment on the night, etc., in the comments box on YouTube. So a lot of people watched it on the night, but also quite a few people watched it after the event and then could show other people in their organisation that they were mentioned or that their film was shown, etc. So we got more views in that way, and people can still watch it now. So it can be looked at any time in the year. The other thing is that even if a key speaker can't attend, so for example, the mayor couldn't make the evening to actually watch it, but that's fine because he recorded a speech beforehand. So any other key speakers like that, we could record them beforehand and then play that on the evening. There was no need to try and find a venue, which is obviously a major advantage because it's quite difficult, especially to host that many people. And we don't really have a budget for the awards, so we're relying on people donating a venue or us raising money somehow to pay for that. And ideally, we want to make sure that the most of the money that we raise goes to the Spirit of Manchester Fund. So the less we can pay out, the better. So these awards, all we paid for were the trophies. We didn't pay for any venue, etc. We had a company volunteer to help us with actually streaming the event. And the only other cost really would have been staff time. So that was pretty much all my time from say February until October, and I work 3.5 days, so that's quite a lot of time. But I did make all of the films, so that was a big chunk of that. And I also did a brochure and a website to accompany it all. There's no need to spend on food if you're going to feed them normally at a live event, so we obviously didn't need to do that. It's also shorter, so some people may only have like, it's only an hour and a half. So a lot of people maybe would think, okay, I can do that rather than sitting through a very long evening. And people can comment and be responded to immediately, which is another pro, in that we monitoring the YouTube chat. We also had people monitoring Twitter, and we had a hashtag of Spirit of Manchester 21. So they were the main jobs on the night, really, that we had somebody monitoring all the comments on YouTube and somebody monitoring social media, which realistically was just Twitter because we don't really have much of a presence elsewhere. And we would feed back any comments from that. So people were thanking people they knew or just saying how they were enjoying the evening or saying hello to each other, etc. And we had a social media, two of my colleagues fed back on social media. So at certain points of the evening, they would get all those comments that had been sent to them by people who were monitoring social media, and they would feed those back. And that's a really nice element because that makes it a lot more interactive, and people think that, that they can actually have a part of the awards, and even if they hadn't nominated people, they can mention them there and then. There's less staff time needed on the evening. We don't need to have so many jobs allocated, other than people checking the social media and a few people presenting. Then that's really all we were doing. The cons of having it virtually is you don't have that personal touch. You don't see these people that you may work with, or you don't make those connections that we always used to get at the live event, in that we were showing all these films of different projects. So people might think, oh, okay, I should go and speak to that person that's similar to my project, etc. But it's obviously not the same when you're showing it virtually. The other thing about that is that the shortlist or the winners maybe don't feel as special, as like they're not getting invited onto the stage and having the mayor give them a certificate and shaking their hand, taking their photo, etc. And it being a big celebration, it would be smart dress, tables set out, food, drinks, etc. So it felt like a big event, which it doesn't feel like when you're doing it virtually. I think that is one of the cons, that people don't necessarily feel that it is such a special event. It's a bit different than me just cycling to give you a trophy, which I've just done now for one of the winners. You're very reliant on technology too, which can be a problem. It's generally a lot better than it would have been, but some people may still be reluctant to view a live event, or they're not sure how to comment. Or the main issue for us would have been if they were able to, if they know how to vote or use a QR code or have a QR reader, or can even work out how to open more than one browser on their phone, because they would need to vote using one and then and still be looking at the event. One of the things that I have spoken to one of the people who won the awards, who said that maybe we could put all the films of all the shortlist onto the website before the event and allow people to vote on the week build up to it, so that they don't need to panic on the night that they maybe have pressed the wrong button or they're not sure what they're doing, because it's obviously difficult to support them virtually as well, and if they're not necessarily saying or knowing that they've done something wrong. So yeah, I think that's what we will do next time, and there's definitely learning from this event, as there was from last year, and we're getting there. It was a lot sort of slicker this year, and I think we did it how we wanted to do it. But there were still mistakes, unfortunately, that were sort of out of our hands. But one of the films didn't get shown, which wasn't great at all, and there was nothing I could do about it because I wasn't on Zoom and there's a time delay. So next time I will make sure that I am behind the scenes because I know what the order should be and what would be missing that maybe the others wouldn't know. So I was monitoring the chat and responding to things that way, but that probably wasn't the best role for me. I should have been in the actual Zoom. So I've learnt that now, and that will be different next year. But it's always the way something's going to happen, whether it was a live or a virtual event. So I think generally it was very successful. It's just what we do next year. Do we have a virtual event and a live event? Is that doable? How would we do that? I don't know. I mean, there's been suggestions that maybe we have a live event for the shortlisted groups. So a very small award ceremony where we show the shortlisted films and people vote on the evening. And then we have more of a thank you, open, broader, non-competitive event online and encourage lots of people to get involved in that. So, but it's something I need to look into, and yeah, we'll see what happens next year. It would be nice to see people face to face, but I don't want to. I don't want to get rid of the virtual side of it because I think that it's been one of the positive things to come out of the pandemic is that we can now reach a lot more people, different people who may not know anything about Manchester's voluntary sector or are in the voluntary sector but maybe wouldn't have been invited to the awards or wouldn't have been able to make it. So yeah, I think there's definitely advantages in the virtual event that way, but it's just to tweak it to get it quite right and see if we can use both as well. I think one of the main things that worked well this year was involving more of Mac's staff. So last year it was mainly me and Cheryl did a lot of the work. I did a lot of the content and Cheryl led on the awards last year, my colleague. But this year I led on the awards and I had a little bit more time to do that. And I also thought I wanted to involve people from the beginning. So I thought I could allocate pieces of work. So I allocated work to a small team, Helen and Charlotte, who did the quiz. And they really took that on and did it, and it was great. And I think they enjoyed doing it too and having that bit of responsibility for that piece of work. And it made it so much easier for me because I was trying to gather all the films and the content. And also with the raffle, Victoria led on that, so that was great. And then Jack spoke to we had this production team who have volunteered for us for the last few years, really. And he worked with them to talk about the technical side of things. So I think I would definitely do that again. It was how it used to work when it was a live event, was people had definite roles on the night, but it was more about building up to that and some of the things we can do throughout the year or actually just expand the program of the Spirit program. So I think that was really successful, and I enjoyed working with colleagues I wouldn't necessarily have worked with other projects on. Yeah, I think it was a very good thing to do. It helped me, obviously, spread some of the workload, and it also meant that the Mac team felt that they were more included in the awards and the planning of it. And it wasn't just like, right, the event's on now. They knew they'd been working towards it. Also, I'd been feeding back how it was going, what I needed on a sort of a weekly basis, really, both in staff meetings and just by email, just telling how we're doing, or if we've got a lot of prizes in, etc. Any positive sort of news on the build up to get people into it and excited about it. We also had a watch party where staff watched it together. So some staff did that. Another nice thing that happened actually with people who were shortlisted was they also had parties where they watched the awards together. So they did have that small live event. So as well as having an awards evening, the other parts that we had a raffle, which we normally have at our live event. We normally just, sell raffle tickets for £1 and then draw the prizes. And we didn't do this last year. We didn't do any sort of raffle because we couldn't work out how we would do that virtually. But this year we thought we'd give it a try. And it was a lot more complicated than we thought it would be. It took a while to work out what platform would work because we couldn't use PayPal and we couldn't do it directly into the Spirit of Manchester Fund because that would have been confusing us to know which donations were for the raffle and then how to draw it. So my colleague Victoria led on this piece of work, and in the end, we chose the National Funding Scheme.org, which was great. It was easy enough to do. It needed a bit of information to put on there, which took a while because we had to get it from managers and different bits and things. But when it was on there, then that was fine. All we needed to do was get people to text, and they would get a ticket that way. You don't get details of people, you only get their phone number. So again, that involved us going into the office and ringing the winners and then asking for their email address to send the vouchers, because most of the prizes luckily were vouchers. Anything that was an object, like we had some bottles of wine, things like that. We asked people, we already told people from the beginning that if they won those sort of prizes, they would need to collect it from the office. But that was only a couple of prizes. The other things were mainly vouchers from reality, like virtual reality experiences or meals out, things like that. I think it was relatively successful for our first time. We made £216. It was £3 a ticket. But if we really think about it, the main prize was a £100 voucher, and all the other prizes together would probably be at least £200-300 worth. So that's difficult. But then we'd got supporters. We'd asked around for people to donate prizes. So we hadn't. Nothing came out of our pocket. It was all donated, and it did. I don't know, it just added an extra element to the awards and to Spirit generally. But I think we would need to promote it more and over a longer period of time for that to work better next time. Then the other thing is that we had to buy a license, a gambling license from the council, because we were publicising and selling tickets outside of just being in the event. So it was always been fine for us to sell raffle tickets at our event and not need a license. But because we were having to promote it beforehand and sell them over a few weeks, then we needed a license. So that was £40, and it's £20 a year to renew it. So yeah, it's probably worth getting for us. But I think what we'll have to do is think about how we use raffles more, and maybe have more than one a year to make that, to justify that really, and to also get it as a more of a normal thing that we do, and it can go into the Spirit of Manchester Fund just as an extra option. So yeah, there were definitely pros and cons, and I think we will probably look at doing that a bit differently next time and seeing how we can hold a raffle and get the maximum amount of tickets sold. I think one thing that we changed at the last minute was that we didn't announce the winners on the night. We kept selling tickets on the night, and I would recommend that because we obviously had quite a big audience there. So out of our tickets, we sold like 60 or more during the evening, and about another 10, 20 outside of the evening. So yeah, we definitely sold more on the night, but there may be a way we could sell more on the night, or have things like people, when they join the event, they somehow tick something to buy a ticket as like a donation, and then their name is put down for a ticket. There may be ways of doing that we need to explore. So that's one of the learning things from that. It didn't make us a great deal of money, but again, it's a learning process. The quiz as well. We didn't do a virtual quiz this year because we tried last year and no one was really interested. So we didn't get enough take up for that. And it seemed like people were ready to meet up, even in little small groups, or maybe hadn't seen some of their colleagues for a while. So we did a live quiz. We got the Bay Horse in the Northern Quarter, gave us their downstairs, and it went well. It went well. There were probably 5 or 6 teams, and a team would spend about £30 for a team. Again, it would not be worth doing to make lots of money, because if we think about the amount of staff hours that went into that, that's, and the trophy cost £40. So we weren't going to make tons of money from that. But I think it did raise our profile a bit, and it was a really nice event. It was just a nice networking event and to see people and things. So I think you have to balance these things out, don't you? Whether it's worth doing if you're thinking about it as fundraising, or if it's more that you just want to raise your profile and you want to network a bit with other organizations. So it was successful for that. I think we probably would do it again and just see it more of a networking event and less of a that it has to earn loads of money. Obviously we would need to be given the venue Otherwise, we'd be losing money on that. So yeah, it's something to learn from. But it was a nice evening, and we all enjoyed it. So as well as the raffle earning money for the Spirit of, or bringing in money for the Spirit of Manchester Fund, we also asked for donations on the night to our local giving to the Spirit of Manchester Fund. And we did get quite a few from that too. So I don't think it was masses. I think it was maybe £90 in total was donated on the night. The other way that we've raised money through the awards is that we ask people to support an award category, and we had four of those, and they were charged £300 each. So that brought in a chunk, which again goes to the Spirit of Manchester Fund. Um, Yes, so we did bring in money in different ways, not masses. I think it's a lot more about us celebrating the sector and actually showing a bit what MAC does and our role in helping promote different organisations and volunteers in the sector. It raises MAC's profile, and it also raises the profile of the sector. So that's sort of more of an advantage to us, and the fundraising is more of a side issue, and an we would like to increase that more, because obviously that money goes back into the sector, but we just need to find out how to be a bit more successful with that. But yeah, I wouldn't see it as a big fundraising event for us, but it's more of a raising our profile and the sector's profile event, and happens to have a bit of fundraising attached to that.